If you are just trying to muscle through things and not use any technique, that's not going to take you very far.
Solo round.
We are about to launch.
Truth, not trends. Not trends. Yeah.
Hey, here we
Oh.
are. Truth, not trends.
What's going on, everybody?
Truth, not trends.
We are here waxing poetic. I don't know, listening to
Are we
music.
poets?
Yes, we are.
Poets of training, strength poets. What's going on, everybody? Jesse Schmidt and Liam Bauer coming at you.
Live from the TNT studio, Oakland, California.
This is the podcast where we help you maximize your strength as safely
And efficiently.
as possible.
And specifically.
Ooh, specific adaptation to whatever your sport is. We're going to talk all about it. My name's Jesse Schmidt, and I have been a strength coach for 2,030 days.
The numbers just keep rolling.
30 days.
My name is Liam Bauer. I've been a strength coach for 35 years and counting.
Yes, sir. And today we're doing a solo round. Just the two. Just the two of us.
We can make it if we try.
Just the two of us.
You and I.
With an email from Scott. So we got an email from one of our dedicated listeners, Scott. Shout out, Scott. You're the man.
Thank you, Scott.
He sent us some nice words through an email. He had some questions about how to balance your sport with your strength training. Especially, he knows that I am an American Ninja Warrior practicer. Haven't been on the show yet, but hopefully soon. And I go hard in the paint. And sometimes, when you go hard, you have to recover hard too. And so he was curious about how do I balance, obviously I'm working hard in the strength training, working hard.
Go hard, go home.
And so we're going to give all kinds of tips and tricks about how to do that in this episode.
I think when they made those shirts, they didn't realize what it really meant was either train or recover. Go hard.
Whoa.
Right? Don't just be hanging around doing
You
nothing.
should do both.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. You should go hard and then you should go home.
go hard. It should be go hard and go home.
There we go. Then go home.
Yeah. So we're going to get into it. Before we get into it, we're going to talk with you about a couple of our podcast partners here, starting with Low Cal Foods Cali.
Feed your inner athlete.
That's right. This is your Bay Area based meal delivery service. They will make you custom, delicious meals individually packaged and delivered to either your home or the TNT studio here in Rockridge, Oakland.
Yeah,
you can pop in.
You want to pick them up and come in, get a workout,
That's right.
check your body fat.
These guys, they
while you're
have
here.
custom meals. You can customize them yourself, or you can choose from some of their pre-selected meals because they have all kinds of delicious stuff they've already figured out. And the best thing about it is there's no cooking involved. All you do is take these things, pop them in the microwave, eat them. They're delicious. Plus, a little cherry on top is you can use the discount code TNT Strength 5 and get 5% off your next order.
Right. And when you're searching for the best, the coolest, most incredible home gym strength training system around, you got to get yourself the Harambe system. The Harambe system is our favorite band-based strength tool. It's incredible. It's made here in the USA by our friend Khalid Borbea. He designed it himself. Like a mad scientist, he took that math PhD and focused it on how do I train safely and efficiently in my house. Not only that, he's crushing the Instagram. Go out and check him out. He got shredded recently using his Harambe Shred eating plan. The Harambe system has everything you need to create any kind of barbell-based strength training system using resistance bands right there in the safety of your own home. It's portable. You can put it under your bed. You can throw it in a bag. You can do squats and deadlifts and bench presses and shoulder presses and curls and upright rows and single leg, double leg, loading heavy up to 1,000 pounds of resistance. It just keeps improving. They've refined, they've improved the platform recently. They've added and created new ropes. They're constantly innovating. Go to the Harambe System website, and while you're there, use the code TNT to get 15% off all the swag available in the Harambe System store.
Booyah. Everybody, please enjoy this solo round about training for your sport and training for your strength.
Boom.
So we got an email from our guy Scott, and he's got a question about ninja videos. So if you've been listening to this podcast, you may or may not know my name's Jesse Schmidt, aka Wonder Boy.
Wonder Boy.
I do a little bit of American Ninja Warrior training. I haven't been on the show yet, although I've been a course tester at Universal Studios a couple times. I think I have the skills to make it to the top of Mount Midoriyama.
There we go.
Hopefully they give me a shot in the 2023 season. And Scott gave us some really good questions in this email, so we thought it was worthy of putting together a whole podcast episode for.
There you go. If you're a long time listener, you may remember that we actually had an episode where we were went through the mailbag.
We did, yeah.
People actually
crinkled the
snail
paper.
mail letters, and we had to tear them.
We had sound effects. It was really high quality.
As all of our material is.
So let's start from the top. I'm not going to go straight to the question because he kind of strokes my ego a little bit, which I want to really focus on here. So
let's do that.
He says, "I wish I lived in Oakland so I could train at your facility. I follow Jesse's Instagram where he posts reels of himself on the ninja course, and this is the part that I really want to thank you for, Scott, because it just makes me feel all warm and fuzzy." He says, "While Jesse's prowess on the ninja course is certainly an impressive display of speed, strength, and coordination."
Yes.
And then it takes a reroute. He says it does not look biomechanically safe, which is exactly right, Scott. And that is the whole nuance that we want to dig into in this episode. He goes on to say, just like jogging imposes a force of 3 times your body weight with each foot strike, some of the ninja moves use momentum and dynamic force to impose impact forces 5 or 6 times your body weight. While the damage may or may not be acute, the damage could be cumulative and show up later in life. I was just curious about your thinking about your overall ninja activities and how it fits into your overall health plan. Maybe this topic is worthy of a podcast? Yes. It is. It is, Scott. Here we are. And then he goes on to say, maybe the question is, how do you train safely and efficiently and still pursue your passions without the passions undermining the training? Man, couldn't have posed a better question ourselves.
And now I did answer Scott via email with a very long-winded answer, which we don't necessarily have to get into.
I didn't even know wind could get that long. It was a long answer.
Anyone who knows me, don't get him started. But that was an astute observation by our man Scott there, and we're going to call you and talk to you, Scott.
We are. We're going to ring you up.
It's not often that we give a direct response via podcast.
Only for the Hall of Fame listeners, the diehards, as we call them.
They deserve it. What's up out there in TNT land? We appreciate you coming on over and listening to our podcast. And to say thank you, we're going to send you our free training and nutrition guide.
That's right. We put it together just for you so you can maximize your results in the gym and in the kitchen. So please, before you're done listening to this episode, head over to tntstrength.com, sign up for the mailing list, and you'll get our free PDF of our nutrition and training guide so you can get right on that game train. Bam! All right, so let's get into it. First of all, if you don't know what American Ninja Warrior is, it's obstacle course training. It's very upper body intensive. Rock climbers tend to do really well in the sport because the obstacles you tend to be hanging from, using your grip for a long time. It's a television show. It's put on by NBC, and essentially,
basically a copy of an older show from Japan.
Yeah. So they put together this obstacle course, and in the first round, you have to get through, I think, 7 obstacles. So there's a little balance obstacle. There are, usually there are a bunch of things where you're hanging from your hands.
Swinging.
Swinging. So like I said, it's like 90% upper body.
Yeah.
There's the warped wall, which is 14 feet tall that you have to run up and jump and grab with your hands. And it's like really challenging. You totally have to commit and throw yourself into the air, and people tear their Achilles all the time because, they miss the grab. And and it's a big leap. So it definitely is a sport where you can, significantly injure yourself if you haven't trained for it, and if you don't know how to position yourself correctly. So let's get into my approach with the Ninja Warrior training.
Let's do that.
So, Ninja Warrior, it doesn't really have a season per se, like baseball does or basketball does. They have a filming season when you're going to get filmed, and it basically happens in, around the springtime, and they film over, a couple days, and it's all done. And they have different filming locations around the country. So they have like an LA filming, and it's usually there's one in like Texas and Seattle and Midwest somewhere. And so they do the filming over a couple months, but you as the competitor, you're usually knocking it out in a couple days. It only takes probably like 5 minutes, like maximum, to get through one of these courses. So it's
Right.
even though it's like very dramatic, it's extremely fast, especially when your adrenaline's pumping and all of that stuff. Even just as a course tester, I can tell you it's nerve-wracking, being up there. You got 50 people watching you go through this obstacle, and when you're actually being filmed on the course, it's kind of just like being in a professional sport, right? There's a couple thousand people watching you, and only you, right? All eyes are on you.
Right.
But so yeah, there's not really a season, and so you're kind of just doing this year round. And so I think it is really important to make sure that you are kind of constantly challenging yourself and recovering. And as athletes, any athlete knows that the biggest struggle is not like doing enough work, right? The biggest struggle is resting enough. Athletes love to train for their sport. They love to train for their sport, and they'll do anything to get better at it except rest.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be told, hey, you need to do less and you'll perform better in your sport.
Exactly.
But that's what I'm saying right now. So I'll start out by telling you exactly what I do for my Ninja Warrior training. I'll tell you my entire training program, really. So we're recording this episode on a Wednesday. I'm going to do my full body, high intensity strength training workout today. Liam's going to put me through the paces. I'm probably going to do, 8 to 12 sets, one set to, momentary muscular failure. I'll work everything from my, neck to my, we'll do a compound pushing movement, compound pulling movement, compound leg movement, and then fill in the gaps with all the other places, probably an ab thing, lower back thing, all of that good stuff. But training all of the major muscles of my body. So that's on Wednesday. I also, in addition to do the American Ninja Warrior training, I have gotten really into running obstacle course races. So these are longer distances. So American Ninja Warrior is like a 5-minute sprint. You get through an obstacle and it takes you like however long it takes you. But if it took a minute, that would be a very long obstacle and you probably would not complete the course.
Right.
So, it's kind of a miracle when people finish the course in 5 minutes. Usually they finish in like half that time, because if you have the skills and the efficiency to get through the course, you finish it generally, unless you make a huge mistake. But then with the obstacle course racing, that is a much longer, course. So I just did a race this past weekend with a fellow donut runner. Shout out to Sarah. She crushed it, her first Spartan race. And that was a 6.6 mile race with probably around 25 obstacles, something like that. So we're climbing tall walls and ropes, and we're throwing spears, and we're doing all, we're going through mud puddles and all kinds of lifting heavy boulders and all kinds of stuff.
It's a different animal than the ninja.
Yeah. So ninja is like 5 minutes long, very high intensity. Spartan
upper body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Upper body necessary. The Spartan race is really distance oriented, right? There's a lot of running, and then occasionally you climb over a wall or lift a heavy thing. So just two different beasts. So, but anyway, back to what my weekly program is. Wednesday is a strength training day. Thursday is a rest day. And when I say rest, I mean, I try to walk 10,000 steps a day, but I don't do any lifting. I don't do any running, nothing else. Friday, I run a 10K with a running group. And so from my house, I run around Lake Merritt and then back to my house, and it's a little over 6 miles. which just happens to be the distance of the Spartan race, about the distance of the Spartan race I ran this past weekend. So it's a nice corollary there. I don't do any strength training on Friday, just the distance run. On Saturday, I rest, meaning I try to walk 10,000 steps, but I don't do anything. I don't do any ninja stuff. I don't do any lifting. I just walk and let my body chill. On Sunday, I do a ninja day. Sometimes I will do the ninja day on Saturday, and then I still have had Thursday and Friday to rest from the strength training, but I like to have an extra day, so I train Sunday. And my approach with the ninja training is I do some strength training after I'm done. It's about an hour and a half open gym, and I try to put a course run together. So I string a bunch of obstacles together and try to get through them all. And then I take a long rest. So again, it's probably about 5 minutes of going through obstacles, trying to go bam, 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 trying not to rest very much in between, because that's how they do it on the show. They actually push you through it, and they count you down. So if you take too long, you can get disqualified. A lot of people don't know that. But then I probably rest for like 15 minutes. It's not like I finished that course and I'm just like right back up climbing stuff.
Right.
I go hard, and I try to make it as technically sound as I can, which when you're watching this stuff, it just looks like, oh, that person's just very athletic. But when they make it look easy, they're very practiced.
Right.
There are people on on American Ninja Warrior who they are just naturally athletic, very strong people. And the course makes them look like fools, because you need to know how to, right? If you are just trying to muscle through things and not use any technique, that's not going to take you very far.
Yeah, even like elite gymnasts and guys that you would think would be perfect for it struggle if they've never done it before.
Yeah, exactly. So in an hour and a half gym for about 75 minutes, I am doing course runs and resting. So that's ideally what I'm trying to do. So I probably do like 3 course runs, and and I might work on some other skill. Like I've been trying to get up the mega wall, which is an 18, or it might be a 20-foot wall at Traverse. So extremely high, that's 6 extra feet compared to the regular warped wall. And so sometimes I will, as I'm quote unquote resting from the upper body intensive, kind of like circuit that we're doing, I might do like a lower body thing. And then when I'm done with the ninja training, then I go and do a quick, like high intensity workout where I'll do like a bench press to failure, chin up to failure, squat to failure. I set up the safety bars in the squat rack so I can actually, go as hard as I can and fail safely. I might do some other stuff like a lateral raise and make sure I'm keeping my shoulders balanced. Calf raise. I also, since American Ninja Warrior is so upper body focused, I'm really trying to keep my grip and my forearms strong all the way around. So I'll do a bicep curl, like a regular supinated bicep curl, a hammer curl to hit the brachialis, right, the forearm extensor, and then I'll do a pronated curl as well. So we really get those forearm extensor muscles. And I've noticed, and Liam can attest to this, that not only has my grip and arms gotten stronger, but they also have gotten bigger since I've been really focusing on this on the forearms.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. Wednesday strength, Friday distance run, Sunday ninja, and maybe sometimes, I'd say a couple times a month, I also do some high intensity interval. I do a Tabata on our Airdyne bike here in the studio, meaning
just 4 minutes of max effort for 20 seconds, rest for 10.
Yeah.
You're doing 8 cycles of that.
So
it's meant to be literally as hard as you can possibly go.
It's absolutely brutal.
When it's over, you don't want to do anymore.
Yeah. So there you go. I'm getting the strength training. I'm getting the ninja specific skill training, and I'm getting the conditioning, both with the distance, with the distance run on Fridays, and with the interval training on some Mondays. And it also should be said that when we do the strength training, I'm not taking an hour to do the strength training. We do exactly what we advocate for our clients. Usually we try to preset all of the equipment beforehand so we can not rest at all between exercises. So, I'd say my normal time to finish a workout is about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So a full body workout, 10 exercises on average, I finish in about 15 minutes. So that's what I recommend. That's what I recommend for everybody. Now, getting back to some of the points that Scott brought up.
Right.
So, okay, there are a couple issues here. One is this sort of overall, like, balancing your sport with balancing your strength training.
Yeah. People have to recognize, number one, that, there's many, many different types of sports. Ninja Warrior, for instance, you're competing against yourself, the obstacles, the clock, right? There's no one else impeding your progress or trying to interfere with you in any way, right? It's not like American football where you have giant guys smashing into other giant guys, right? And or a combat sport where you're trying to knock somebody out and they're trying to do the same thing to you, right? So there's differences. And there's always specificity to every sport, right? But sports by their nature have, like, as Scott brought up in his email, these forces that you have to contend with. And so, number one, you got to recognize that all sports carry with them an inherent risk, right? Or in most sports, right? There's a risk of injury. And people participate in those sports because they enjoy them, or maybe if they're at the elite level, it's their job, right? But they accept and recognize those risks as part of participation of the sport, right? Strength training in this case is really, in most sports, honestly, is really about injury resistance, right? And career longevity, that kind of thing. It's not because you need to be bigger, faster, stronger, or that it has some amazing carryover. We do want to be as strong as we possibly can. But in a ninja sport, for instance, and many other sports, you don't want to just be as big as possible, right? Jesse weighs about 170 pounds. It wouldn't really necessarily be beneficial for him to make a goal to be 200 pounds or 220 pounds, because that's way more weight. He may have some more muscle, but he has to also carry that hanging, against gravity down these courses, right? Often what I say, sort of, as it sounds really simple, is be as strong as muscular as you can until it impedes, whatever your sport, right? If I'm a runner, I want as much muscle until if it starts to slow me down, right? It's too much, right? Because I have to carry that down the track or whatever over an obstacle. So yeah, we want to think of it as injury resistance, enhancing output, but not interfering with the other stuff that you're trying to achieve.
So there are a lot of offshoots that we can explore from what you just said. I mean, in general, we don't really recommend like periodization, quote unquote. This is, a lot of folks would say, when you're in season, you should train totally differently than when you're out of season. Maybe you need to do a power phase leading into the season, and off season, that's when you work on strength and stability. And that's not our philosophy at all, really. We basically almost always recommend that people be training with a high level of intensity in their strength training, right? So when you're doing your full body workouts, we recommend that you do train to momentary muscular failure. We've seen athletes in season still training that hard, still getting measurably stronger. And this is a key thing, is that we need to be measuring progress. The purpose of strength training is to get stronger. That sounds overly simplistic, but if you're not getting stronger, you could be getting weaker because you're under recovering while you're training.
It wasn't uncommon in a lot of sports where, first, many sports were slow to embrace strength training. It's hard to imagine these days because we're in this current culture, we sort of recognize strength training as part of sports prep. But for many years, it wasn't. And when they started to embrace it, it wasn't unusual for them to strength train off season and then stop it completely in season, thinking, well, we're just playing the sport. And then the smarter coaches learned that you need to strength train through the season, right, to maintain strength. Because what would happen to those guys, they'd give up the strength training and they'd slowly be losing strength as the season progressed. And the time when you need it the most, at the end of the season, when you're trying to go into, overtime, or you're getting into those extra innings or whatever, or you're trying to get into the playoffs, right? You need to be as fit and strong as you can be. One thing that does happen in our niche, the hit influence stuff, is although we don't really plan these microcycles, mesocycles, macrocycles, what often happens, probably counterintuitively, is one thing that we do often do is train less in season, but not
less frequently,
less frequently, and less total volume per se, but not with less intensity, right? So off season, I might have somebody doing 12 or 14 sets, right, a couple times a week. In season, it might be down to 3 to 5 sets once or twice a week, right? But the intensity is always maximum, right? Yeah. So if they're, we want, I created an MMA training program years ago, where the in-season program, if you want to call it that, like coming close to competition time, was only 3 exercises in each workout. Whereas, off-season, when further out from competition, was, more like 5 or 6 with, so again, you want to adjust that, but the intensity should always be max.
Yeah. And so how do we decide how to throttle the frequency of the training? We know that the intensity should stay high, but let's say it's off season. I'm doing 2 strength training sessions a week, and now I'm in season, and instead of playing 0 games a week, I'm playing 3 games a week, 2 games a week, whatever it is. We've trained a lot of high school baseball players, and I've seen them, continue doing their 2 strength sessions a week, even through the season. Teenagers have an enormous recovery ability. So even with baseball practices every day and games a couple times a week and 2 strength training sessions, we've seen them measurably continue to get stronger. So how do we decide if maybe we need to reduce the training frequency in season? Well, look at the data. If normally you can bench press 225 for 10 reps, and now that you're in season, you can only get 5 reps. Well, maybe it's time to start only training once per week instead of twice per week. Okay. Maybe the numbers stall out, they stay the same, and you're not making progress. That could be another reason you could try reducing the frequency, see if the numbers head in the positive direction again. Or maybe the numbers are still going up, but there's something more qualitative going on. Like you just feel tired. You just feel sluggish. You don't have the same energy on the field or the court or whatever you're doing. You feel lethargic. Those are qualitative indicators that you may be quote unquote overtraining, and you may need to reduce the frequency. But and you could, once a week is probably a pretty sustainable frequency for almost anybody in season. But with that said, if that still feels like too much, you could go as low as, say, once every other week, even once a month. We wouldn't recommend that for most people, but you could try it.
Keep in mind too that when you're starting to get these type of workouts that are brief and have low volume and so forth, sometimes they call them consolidation programs. If you're looking back at the Menser stuff, some guys call it the coach's workout, right? Just like very brief, very low volume. You don't have to get everything done, right? People get worried, like, I got a squat, I got a deadlift, I got a bench, or whatever they think that is required for success. Keep in mind that you can hit those things in different workouts, right? There's so many ways to set up a program. You could do your big 3 in one workout: deadlift, squat, bench press, for instance, if those are important for you for whatever reason. And then another workout, you could do some other 3 movements, right? The chin-ups, the dips, the single leg stuff, right? You can mix and match hundreds of ways to create these programs that are brief, intense, and efficient. You can do an only push, right? You could do shoulder press, chest press, leg press, and then a pull on another one, pull down, row, deadlift, right? And have even more recovery, right? Because you're having time between the muscle groups as well. So you want to find a way to balance out the work and rest so that you see the numbers maintain at minimum, or hopefully continue to improve even in season or whatever. It takes experimentation, right? But we have lots of time to do it. But most people, again, just like the more is better thing happens in so many other places, people get too hung up on trying to get all that stuff. I used to, jokingly say, cramming 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. It's too much stuff. You don't need to get it all done. You need the least amount in order to keep you going in the direction you're trying to go.
Right. Athletes are not trying to become a great weightlifter. We're lifting the weights to become a better athlete, to become a more powerful athlete, have a better engine. So to just to summarize here, to Scott's first question of how do we balance the overall kind of workload, for me personally, and what we recommend for clients and for you guys listening to this podcast is find a sustainable frequency for this stuff. So for me, right, I do the strength work on Wednesdays and Sundays. So I have Thursday, Friday, Saturday to rest between strength and ninja on Sunday. And then I have Monday, Tuesday to rest again. So it's always 48 hours, at least 48 hours to rest between strength training sessions. Because you're right, Scott, when you're imposing a high demand on your muscles, there also needs to be a recovery to match that demand. Right? Yeah. So that's kind of the macro view.
Hey, what are those guys doing here?
Whenever I feel like I'm stalling out on my bench press, I know I need a new strength curve.
Whether you're stalling out on the road or stalling out in the gym, you need something with great engineering.
That's right. And
so look for the pendulum.
Pendulum. Not just your average strength machines.
No, they have smooth strength curves,
amazing rigidity.
And did we mention the engineering's fantastic?
That's right. Not to mention, they come in cool colors.
Like red.
And silver. That was kind of weird. What was that all about? Back to the interview.
The other part of it is as I touched on, is that he is choosing to accept the risk of the participating
So
of the sport.
let's get into that. There's something called the SAID principle, right? Which stands for specific adaptation to imposed demands. All right. And what that means is to get better at a specific skill, we need to practice that exact skill, not something like it. We need to do exactly that skill. So this trips up people everywhere. People, normal gym goers, trainers, professional athletes, everybody. When you see somebody swinging a weighted golf club or a baseball bat or throwing a weighted ball or that sort of thing, they are actually practicing a different skill than their sport requires. And that skill could have a negative transfer. So there's a little bit of nomenclature for you folks. When you're practicing a skill, it's totally different from your strength training. You should not conflate the two. When you're in the gym, you should work as hard as you can in your strength training. But when you're practicing a skill for your sport, you want to practice exactly the skill, as specific. Watch Steph Curry, right? We're Dubs fans over here, right? Look at all the very specific stuff that he does, right? He's practicing the exact dribble he's going to do into the corner and shooting with, he might even be practicing shooting with his left hand, right? He dribbles with the right, throws it over to his left hand, shoots left-handed, right? Very specific. A third baseman is practicing hugging the line, charging a bunt, backhanding it, and throwing off balance to first base, right? Over and over and over again. When I'm in the ninja gym, I'm running up the warped wall 10 times in a row, right? Over and over and over again. I'm resting a little bit in between because it's hard work.
Sure.
Right? But we have to practice these things, going up and down the salmon ladder, right? Balance obstacles, even. I don't love training balance obstacles because they are dangerous. And we've talked, that's why we put the no BOSU thing at the end of every podcast, because when we're putting ourselves in an unstable environment, the risk of injury goes through the roof. And you should never really be risking injury when you're doing strength training.
Yeah.
But as Liam said before, when we're practicing a sport, sports are inherently dangerous. Nobody would step foot onto a football field and say, hey, look, guys, don't hit me too hard, right? I don't want to get hurt today.
Right.
You could get hurt. That's part of playing the sport.
Yeah,
you could tear your Achilles playing tennis. You can, right? We saw Sean Livingston's tibia pop out of his shin playing basketball. Stuff happens.
Yeah.
And you have to accept the risk if you're going to play sports.
There's a lot of forces going on, very, very high stuff happening, right? Even in sports that are supposedly, non-contact or low contact, soccer, they say is a non-contact sport, which is ridiculous. People are smashing into each other all the time. There's stuff going on all the time, whether it's appropriate or legal or not. It's literally happening hundreds of times in every game. Basketball, baseball. These guys are smashing into each other as they try to steal a base or, whatever. But there's a lot going on, right? There's contact. And then there's also, as we've discussed in our running things, contact with the ground, all those forces that even Scott brought up in his email, like the ground contact force through your limbs, your body weight is magnified. Imagine that with Ninja, with the salmon ladder. Again, Jesse weighs 170 pounds. He's got to throw that weight through the air, his entire body weight, catch it, right? Again, forces are magnified. But this is something that he enjoys doing. He's practicing. He's doing it as safely as he can. He's preparing himself as much as possible. Is it possible that he could get injured from doing it? Absolutely.
I'm going to post a video this week of me falling on my neck at the ninja gym. So I was the other day, just to give you a little story here. I was practicing this obstacle. There are these mustache shaped handles. So you bounce on a trampoline, you catch this swinging handle. It's a big swing. You're swinging like 10 feet in each direction. And then you swing from that handle to another handle. You keep swinging. And then you swing from that thing to what they call a flywheel, which is this circular thing that's facing, if the mustaches are facing, lengthwise, this one's facing, the other way. It's
frontal
front
plane,
ways. Yeah.
sagittal plane.
Nobody's going to understand what this means. But anyway, I'm flying through the air. It's a big gap. All right. It's a big gap, and I have to catch this spinning wheel. And because it's such a big gap, the force from my swing is just so much to control. Even like totally fresh, like with all of my strength, I have not been able to grab this hold yet, right? And so what happens is I either just like fall off of it immediately and just hit the pads down underneath, or a couple times I've gotten really close to being able to absorb the impact and hold on, but at the last second I slipped off. And this video I'm going to post, you'll see me. It looks like the guy filming me is like, "Oh, nice," and then he sees me fall, so he's like, "Oh, awesome, oh," because I catch it, but I slip off it, and as it's spinning, I flip upside down. I literally landed on my neck, and at that moment, I was like, "Am I dead?" No, I'm not dead. Okay, not even injured. Great, glad I trained my neck.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, we don't, at TNT we recommend training, strengthening the muscles around your head and neck. There are a lot of different ways to do it. We have a 4-way neck machine in the studio. You probably wouldn't think as an American Ninja Warrior competitor that it would be important to have a strong neck, but you're damn right. I was glad I trained my neck on that day.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So if soccer players, football players, hockey players, runners, even.
So yeah, I mean,
very important.
Using my own experience as something, I was a soccer player. I played soccer in college. I played like semi-professionally after college. I've had multiple bad injuries playing soccer. I've torn my hamstrings. I've sprained my ankle really badly. The worst injury I sustained was playing an indoor tournament. I fractured my kneecap, literally, basically the technical term, transverse fracture of the distal third of my kneecap. So basically my kneecap snapped in half at the lower part of it. And nobody even hit me. My body just went into a weird position. I was going really hard and fast. My kneecap sort of went off track and literally just snapped over the joint. And nobody even touched me for that injury to occur. So strange things can happen when you're putting all these forces in your body. I was probably fatigued. I didn't even know that it was broken. I knew something weird had happened. I went to the doctors and they took the x-rays and they were like, you're in trouble. Basically, why are you sitting there like that? Straighten your leg out. Had to be in a cast for 4.5 months. This was way back in the 80s. Took me 2 years to get my strength back 100%. It was a long, slow, painful process. But anyway, soccer was my life. It was everything. I loved it. And, it was just part of it. And I came back and kept on playing after that. I wasn't going to stop. But unfortunately, back then, I wasn't strength training. I didn't know anything about it. I was much skinnier. I had much less muscle in my body before that injury. It was part of the reason why I started strength training.
It's funny to think about 20-year-old Liam having much less muscle on his body than 60-year-old Liam.
Yeah, it is crazy, right? Because I walk around now, I'm 5'7". I walk around now about 160-ish pounds with a fair amount of muscle. In college, I was obviously the same height, and I weighed about 128 pounds.
Wow.
I was really skinny. So once I started lifting weights, that changed. And also it basically gave me a whole nother gear on the field and made me stronger on the ball, made me able to, move people around, protect myself better, all that stuff. I made all these improvements because of it and added longevity to my career. Came back from the injuries and continued to play. So
if you watch the Jordan documentary that came out in 2020, he had his whole revelation after losing to the Pistons in the playoffs that he was going to need to get stronger because they just bullied him. Similar thing happened with Steph Curry, right? And a couple of years ago, I can't remember what series this was, but he was just getting banged up. Might have been against the Cavs, and he realized he needed to get stronger.
Yeah,
because that was nobody could D him up. He's the best shooter in the game, but players just realize if you just push him, if you just foul him, he only gets 2 shots instead of 3 points, 3 points instead of 3. So they slowed him down a little bit. But anyway, back to the original thing. There's this dilemma as an athlete, and especially in a sport like American Ninja Warrior. The dilemma is I need to practice the specific skills of my sport, and the specific skills of my sport impose a really great demand on my body.
Especially the upper body, as we keep saying.
Especially the upper body. So, which means that we really have to make sure we're fully recovering. We cannot eliminate the risk of injury, period. That's the end of that. That's the answer to that question, Scott. You cannot eliminate the risk of injury in these high impact situations. It's just something you accept. It comes with the territory. So that's the acute situation. The longer drawn out situation is we do have to practice, right? I was practicing that mustache swing where I didn't fall on my neck every time. That was just one time, but I fell a lot. I mean, I did that. I actually tried it again after that, believe it or not, and a couple times. And one of the times I fell on my shoulder and I wasn't hurt, but I've luckily, I think, matured to the point where I do listen more to my body. And my body told me, if you do that again, it could be bad.
Sure.
And so I sat down at that point. I was like, okay, let's feel this out. And as I thought about it, I was watching other people do the obstacle, and I was like, wow, this is a high impact obstacle. Like, this is not a normal obstacle. We were swinging, like, if you were to let go at the wrong time, you could be severely injured, right? Like, in certain sports, right,
Yeah.
there is a very high risk of injury.
Yeah, people who don't know me that well may not know that the other sport that I was participating in way back was skateboarding, and I competed in skateboarding and vertical competitions back in the day. This was back in the swimming pools, kind of like X Games kind of stuff, but even before the X Games existed, they had empty swimming pools, skate parks and stuff. Were doing vertical. You're flying through the air. You're going up a wall that's 10 feet tall, and then you're coming out of the top through the air, doing maneuvers, coming back down. When you're learning those skills, obviously, you fall a lot. You learn to fall. You wear protective gear, right? You got the knee pads. You have to learn how to fall. But I mean, I would be falling hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. I can remember trying to perfect specific skills where I literally would spend hours and be falling 90% of the time. And then suddenly, like people have experienced all over the world with different things, you have this breakthrough moment where you put it all together, like Tony Hawk landing the first 900, right? If everybody that was there, it happened in San Francisco at the X Games. He's done it hundreds of times, but eventually you get it. And once you get that and you land it and it all comes together, suddenly you can just do it anytime you want.
Yeah.
It's like a weird thing, right? It's mental, it's physical, it's a combination, it's the synergy. Pretty soon that becomes, an effortless, and you're working on the next evolution of those things. But, I've had crazy injuries in that sport too, broken wrists and, all kinds of things. But, you just, if you're into it and you keep on trying, right? And that's part of the thing is, but there's no way to replicate that except to do it. I can't replicate going up and down a vertical wall, or, Jesse can't practice ninja stuff without the ninja gym.
Yeah. So I end up in these interesting conversations with folks at the ninja gym, because people always think more is better, right? More training is better, which, depending on the skill you're practicing, could be true. We all only have a limited amount of gas in the tank and a limited amount of recovery ability. But if we're doing something like, let's say I'm hitting a baseball off of a tee, I could take 200 swings and be fully recovered to do it again the next day, right? But if I go up and down the salmon ladder in American Ninja Warrior as many times as I can, and then try to come back the next day, I am not going to be recovered. Okay. Right. It's extremely challenging. So when I'm at the gym on Sunday, I'm talking with a fair amount of folks they're there on the same day I'm there, and they were there the day before that. And sometimes they're the day before that too. And some people just go every day. They train every single day. And what I say to them is, you probably shouldn't train hard every single day. In fact, if you do train hard every single day, that's when you will probably down the line end up with a chronic injury. And there are a lot of folks who end up with, tendinitis in the shoulders and elbows and that sort of thing. And surprise, surprise, right? You're hanging from your hands all day long and putting a lot of stress on those joints and not letting them fully recover. And so that tendinitis creeps up, and it gives you the strong signal that, yeah, you're going to need to rest for a longer time now, right? Or just be in pain all the time, which I don't recommend. So that's where I start. I say, I recommend don't do back-to-back days training hard. Please, at least give yourself one day to recover. A lot of people aren't willing to do that, frankly.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're athletes and we think more is better, and you got to get your reps in and all that stuff, which is true to some extent. You have to practice these specific skills. So the way I sort of negotiate that is, well, okay, so you're not going to take days off. At least lower the intensity on some of those days, right? So if you're like, and this is a qualitative thing, you just have to sort of know yourself. Like, if you're hanging from obstacles in the ninja game, and you're fighting on them and you're struggling until you literally can't hold on, and then you let go, right? That is a stimulus that is going to really require a lot of recovery from your body. So don't let it get to that level, right? If you're let's say hypothetically, I was going to train ninja every single day, I would still only train at that high level of intensity ninja on Wednesdays and Sundays, right? And then Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, I would do lower level stuff. Like, I would probably never let the intensity of whatever the obstacle training I'm doing get to more than like a 6, maybe a 7, because at that point the stimulus is strong enough that I'm interrupting my body's recovery.
I can just thinking about it. I've never done Ninja Warrior myself, but I mean, I can just think, if I was working with someone, I could see something like working on the salmon ladder as an example. You might go in there and just do, I don't know how many rungs there are, right? Maybe there's 10, whatever.
Yeah.
So I might have them just do the first 3 and then take a break.
Yeah, usually
First 3, take a break.
Right.
First 3, take a break, right? Because it's the same movement pattern, right? Whether you go to the top or not, or try until you fall off, right? So if you're just working on technical parts of it, you could do 3 perfect reps, take a break for 5 minutes, do 3 perfect reps, and pretty soon you're going to be climbing all the way up that thing.
Yeah, it's true. And another thing you can do if you're not willing to lower the intensity or the frequency that you are training these specific skills is almost like a workout, right? Like an upper body day and a lower body day. Like if you just alternated days, right? If you do a hard upper body day and then so we're doing salmon ladder and hanging off the cliffhanger and swinging from, we're lashing from bar to bar, all that stuff on Wednesday, and then Thursday it's just warped wall practice and balance obstacle practice. And now we're working the lower body. We're still doing ninja practice, but we're letting the upper body rest, right?
Yeah.
That could be a really great way to give your body some extra rest. So, and maybe there is a day of rest in there, and you're still practicing all this different stuff. So you're still back to the SAID principle, specific adaptation to impose demands. We're still practicing very specific skills, but we're also letting our body rest. And on certain days we're working as hard as we can. We're holding on to things, hanging from things for as long as we can until our grip just fails, which is exactly what I do, by the way. On Wednesdays and Sundays, I do my ninja stuff where I'm trying to go through the course, and then I go do a 15-minute strength workout, and at the very end, in the last 2 minutes, I go and I hold on to various grips, and I just do dead hang until I can't hang on. So I'll go hold from a bar, which is like a thick round grip. I'll hold on to the cliffhanger, which is like a flat ledge that's like 1 inch deep. Mm-hmm. And so it's called a crimp in rock climbing. Right. You hold, it's like make a claw with your hand. Like that's what it looks like. I'll hang from a rope, which is like a vertical grip, and it's, very challenging. A lot of people have a hard time with vertical grip stuff. And so I'm just practicing. Sometimes I'll do a pinch too, which is like having your fingers flat, like you're holding a disc in your hand. So I just,
you have like a, Ken doll hand,
yeah.
as opposed to G.I. Joe's Kung Fu.
Yeah. So practicing the specific skills of the sport of ninja. And then I'm also reinforcing through training these various grips to failure, those slightly different kind of movement patterns or muscle groups, if that's what you want to call them. So that's something, regardless of what sport you're playing, you can look at in your strength training, right? We're training more and more runners here at the TNT studio and focusing on certain hot spots, right? Because runners end up with injuries around their ankles and knees and hips and lower backs, hip flexors, right? So focusing on those hotspot areas for your sport can be really effective in your strength training. But the bottom line for the strength training is do 3 fundamental movements, right? A big compound push, a big compound pull, and a big compound squatting movement or leg pressing movement. And that's, if you train those heavy enough that your muscles fail in about 90 seconds, then you're doing everything you need to do to get stronger on a regular basis. And just make sure you're resting long enough in between workouts, and success will follow.
Yeah. And I mean, whatever your sport is, the skill of the sport is the most important. And the fundamental skills are the most important skills, right? In soccer, again, it's ball mastery. If you're making a pyramid, the bottom of the pyramid is ball mastery, just controlling the ball, having a touch on the ball, having your ability to move that ball, make it go where you want it to go. And you cannot practice those things too much. I don't believe that there's such thing as advanced skills in any sport. It's just the basics done with better timing and execution and so forth. In boxing, every single boxer has the exact same punches. Nobody has a secret punch that nobody knows about.
What about a bicycle kick?
Yeah, that's not in boxing. No kicking.
In soccer.
Oh, soccer. Yeah, that's a very specific skill, and it takes practice, right? You have to practice.
But is it an advanced skill?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's an advanced. Some people might, but basically you have to have the ability to control your body in space, know how to touch the ball, right? And all those things are refined through the basics like juggling, trapping, dribbling.
Right.
Um,
Got to think those bicycle kick soccer players want to have strong necks because if you
yeah,
land
and
wrong,
that's a there's not that many people do those type of kicks.
Yeah.
They happen, right? Especially at the elite level. But even at the elite level, it's not like you don't see them all the time.
yeah, super rare.
But having the best basics, someone like Lionel Messi, if you're a soccer guy, right? Everything he does looks simple. And most athletes, that's the truth, right? The elite athletes make things look easy because they have those basics so completely dialed in. He looks like he's not really doing much, but somehow he just winds his way through every single person all by himself. He's somehow can always put the ball through their legs, behind their back, around the thing, right? I put up a thing on my Instagram recently just showing these amazing passes happening in soccer. And it's just all that timing and practice of super basic stuff that makes it look amazing and effortless.
So Liam always says, get in shape to play your sport. Don't play your sport to get in shape. Right. So just to summarize some of the things that we've talked about here.
And that's really the strength training part more than anything, right? Because unless you're a strength athlete, like a power lifter, Olympic weightlifter, then nothing you do in the gym has any carryover to whatever else you're doing.
Number one, we want to make sure we're working hard in the strength training and we're resting enough between bouts of strength training that our body is fully recovered and we can actually show through tracking our progress that we are getting stronger. The weights are getting progressively heavier. We need to be able to demonstrate that. If the data that we're tracking says you're not getting stronger or you're getting weaker, then now it's time to explore some of the other options like strength training less frequently. You need to look at your skill training and see, especially in something like American Ninja Warrior, if I'm feeling like my elbows are aching, which by the way, they were when Liam and I first met, and I was rock climbing a couple times a week and ninjaing a couple times a week and strength training 4 times a week and running a couple times a week. My body was aching everywhere regularly.
Yeah, I think for like a year or two, we got it down to just one strength training session a week, right?
Yeah. So I was doing probably more frequent, rock climbing and stuff. And now, I forgot to mention earlier that I do sometimes so Wednesday during the day, I'll do my strength training session. And sometimes Wednesday nights I will rock climb also. But I'll tell you that when I pack my week like that with strength on Wednesday, rock climbing Wednesday night, running on Friday, ninja and a workout on Sunday, and intervals on Monday, that is the absolute maximum my body can handle. And it's like right on, it might even be over the line. And that's why I don't get the intervals in 100% of the time. I like doing them. They're very challenging. I see the benefit that they can have, but it just feels to me like my body just can't really handle it, all that load.
I think a common mistake
regularly
too, that you have to remember is that usually it isn't that you're not doing enough, right? If you feel overtrained or you're not making the progress, it's not because you're not doing enough. It's usually because you're doing too much, right? Most people make that mistake thinking, I got to do more, right? I'm not getting as big as I want or as strong as I want. I need to do more. I bench 3 times a week. Maybe I should be benching 4 times a week, right? Usually it's less is better, right? So it's very counterintuitive.
Raise the intensity, lower the frequency.
Yeah. And the volume usually. So
sometimes the volume.
Awesome.
So Scott, thank you, man, for writing us. Really appreciate your questions and your listenership. You are a diehard. We want to send you a shirt, dude.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna call you up and get your address.
We're gonna we got your digits already. We're calling you, man.
Yeah. Be prepared. By the time this airs, you'll probably have already got that call.
Boom, baby. What's up, people? Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Truth Not Trends.
That's right here at TNT Strength Headquarters, Truth Not Trends.
Please, if you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and review us on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And don't forget to share with a friend.
You can find us on the web at tntstrength.com.
That's right, TNT Strength now coming to you in person at 5255 College Avenue in Oakland, California. You can call the studio 510-768-5421. You can also text us at 855-796-9905.
Or shoot us an email at contact@tntstrength.com. And whatever you do, stay off of that stupid blue bubbly bosun. Silence in the studio while Jesse arranges his thought process.
Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It, LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com.
Game on.